9 staff members who worked for the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees may have been involved in the October 7th attack on Israel. That's according to an internal investigation. The investigation was started in January after Israel accused some employees of taking part in the attack that left 1,200 people dead. Some of the 9 were fired in January, while others were fired this spring. The U.S. historically, as the relief agency's largest donor, has not reinstated funding for the organization after these findings.
Israeli forces are on high alert as they await that potential retaliation from both Iran and Hezbollah following the killing of those 2 high-profile militants last week. And more U.S. forces are heading to the Middle East, the Pentagon sending the aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln, several cruisers, several destroyers, as well as an additional squadron of fighter jets. The White House says the goal of these forces is to try to deter Iran from carrying out an attack in the first place. I gotta say, both U.S. and Israeli officials are pessimistic that that is going to work. They expect that this attack is coming, and it is now just a question of when. And if it does, those American forces will be called upon to try to intercept incoming Iranian missiles and drones, much as they were back in April when American troops helped shoot down that wave of 300 missiles and drones fired by Iran towards Israel. Now, Israeli officials believe that this attack could potentially come at any time, but one possible clue about the timing: Iran has called for a meeting of the foreign ministers of Islamic states. That meeting will happen in Saudi Arabia on Wednesday. So one possibility is that Iran will want to wait until the other side of that summit before carrying out this attack. But I can tell you there are a lot of very nervous people in Israel right now. That anxiety not helped by comments by former President Trump yesterday on a live stream where he said he had been told that the attack on Israel was just hours away. The spokesman for the Israeli military going up on social media not long after that, appealing to the Israeli public for calm and saying that they would be informed if there was any indication that an Iranian attack was imminent. Raf Sanchez, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
Michael Ofer-Ziv isn't just protesting Israel's war in Gaza. He served in it. And now, as the war enters its 11th month, he is refusing to serve again.
It just feels like this is my duty now. Like, after doing whatever I did there, I feel like it's my duty to oppose this as much as I can, to raise my voice, to be part of this fight.
Michael served as a fire control officer, monitoring threats to Israeli forces in Gaza and approving airstrikes from across the border.
You were watching live feeds of these airstrikes happening.
Yeah.
And what were you seeing?
So no audio, just video. You just see the feed. And then all of a sudden you see just the building goes boom, goes up in flames, like a big mushroom of clouds.
Looks like a video game.
Exactly. And then you start seeing the aftermath of those strikes. At some point, your brain kind of cannot disconnect those two things anymore, and they start to connect. This is happening in real life and has actual effect on those people. So you start connecting the dots.
Once he connected those dots, there was no going back. At the end of May, he and 40 other military reservists said they would not serve again, signing an open letter declaring, "Our conscience does not allow us to stand up and lend a hand to the desecration of the lives of the hostages and to sabotage another deal."
I'm actually supposed to be there now. I was called back. I told them I cannot come. I cannot, in clear conscience, come and do this, in clear mind, clear heart. Just cannot participate in this thing. The main vibe was we shoot first, ask questions later.
It became clear to you that the system was not doing all it could to protect civilians.
Yeah, very, very clear at some point.
Because most of the pictures are taken.
Yuval Green is taking the same stand after wrestling for months with his service as a combat medic in Gaza.
I was always in conflict. It wasn't simple. But I felt like I can't abandon my friends at this moment, when they need me the most.
But the immeasurable destruction around him became impossible to ignore. And so was the language of revenge, he says, that seemed to imbue everything Israeli soldiers in his unit did in Gaza.
The way they spoke, the violent way they spoke, ideas like killing the entire population of Gaza suddenly became almost normal.
What was that moment when you decided, I can't be a part of this anymore?
Basically, they told us to, after one of the houses we've used to protect ourselves, we went out of it, and this was a house in the middle of Khan Yunis, a place that would be definitely rehabilitated by the Palestinians afterwards. And they told us to burn it down because we're burning down every house we're coming out of. And I said, all right, this is just not a good enough reason to take away the house of 2 or 3 families. I'm not doing that. And if we were doing that, I'm leaving. The commander of my company just didn't have good enough answers, and I just left.
The next day, Yuval jumped into a vehicle making a supply run out of Gaza. He never went back.
There is a sense in Israel that if you refuse to serve or if you criticize the war, that you could be viewed as a traitor in some ways.
Yeah, a lot of the my closer friends and families are more afraid that I'll be harmed because of those interviews than I was in Gaza. Crazy, right?
The Israeli military has yet to try and call Yuval back to active duty. But as the war rages on and a wider regional war looms, the military could prosecute Yuval and Michael for refusing to serve.
I do prefer to go to jail than to participate in what we're doing in Gaza, but I prefer to do neither if it's possible.
He may need a ceasefire to turn that hope into reality.
Now, in response to Yuval Green's allegations, the Israeli military says that it follows Israeli and international law and that buildings are only destroyed in order to, quote, remove a threat. They say that any destructions of buildings that don't fit operational needs are, quote, contrary to the Army's orders and the IDF's values and will be examined. Jeremy Diamond, CNN, Haifa, Israel.